Hey guys, my name is Brett from 417BJJ, and since we are all still locked out of the jiu-jitsu gym and we don't get to train, and we have plenty of time in quarantine to read right now, I thought that it might be helpful for some people to have the books that I have found really helpful for strength training and nutrition and general fitness in the past. I've had a couple of people ask me what I do for weight training at the jiu-jitsu gym, so these are books that I have bought over the years, among others that I didn't find so helpful, but these are my favorites, and I'd be happy to let any of my friends borrow them, as long as I can trust you to return them. And also, if you go to our jiu-jitsu gym, in the back of the gym, there's a bookshelf that has a whole bunch of books about jiu-jitsu that I don't plan on reading a second time, so anyone is free to borrow those. These ones I do still refer to from time to time, so I'm keeping these, but you can borrow them if you want to. A few disclaimers: I don't own stock in these books and I don't know the authors or anything like that. I'm just sharing with you what I have found helpful in case you want to do any strength training of your own. Also, I am not a personal trainer, I'm not a nutritionist. I am married to a personal trainer and I am a medical doctor, but my primary education is not in fitness. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. So I started lifting weights about 20 years ago. I think I was 13 when I started. And the first thing I ever read about fitness and weightlifting was Men's Health magazine, which puts out a new issue every month and has done so for a long, long time. So you can guarantee that a lot of the stuff in there isn't applicable to real life. And I did find after a while, just doing stuff that I read in Men's Health and stuff that I read on the internet, that I hit a plateau for years and my weights weren't going up. I wasn't really getting any stronger or any leaner, and I was getting injured over and over again. And so I finally bought some of these books, and I've broken through a lot of barriers that I couldn't move for a long, long time. And now that I am doing jiu-jitsu a lot, I've had to kind of modify what I read in these books to make it fit my own lifestyle. So anyway, if I were to only have one book that I could recommend, I think that it would be this book, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger by Michael Matthews. It's definitely written with like a bodybuilder's mentality, and by bodybuilder I mean somebody who's just going for like an aesthetic look and not necessarily worrying about how much weight they're putting up or athletic performance as far as like a grappling sport would go. But this book has a lot of really good information about what are the most important lifts, which is actually pretty consistent among all of these books as the most compound lifts, which are squat, deadlift, shoulder press, and bench press. And then some of the books have some other things that they consider to be primaries. This book tells you how to do those lifts safely and most effectively. It tells you like how many reps, how many sets, how often you should work out, and there's a lot of information about here about nutrition. Kind of too much information. It's about like, counting macros and stuff like that. That does work. It works really well. But if you are a grappling athlete, for example, then you just can't really be that strict with your nutrition because there are too many variables. How often you're going to practice, and if you're drilling at home and stuff like that. And so you just you can learn a lot from this book, but you don't need to follow it like a Bible or anything like that. So first impression with this book, I was really, really impressed by the amount of science that's in it. He cites a lot of articles. I think in the back probably, he's got citations going up into the hundreds here from research and scientific articles and stuff like that. So I thought that that was really cool, because this is not just some bro telling you what works and this is the only way that things can be done. This is actually scientifically backed. So my number one book, I think if I were to only read one, it's really easy to read. I would strongly recommend. There are a couple of other books by the same author. This one is called Thinner, Leaner, Stronger, and it's basically the female version of Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. I bought this for my wife after I read Bigger, Leaner, Stronger because I was so impressed by it. And after it arrived and I flipped through it, I realized it is exactly the same, like word for word. He probably changed the male pronouns to female pronouns, but otherwise the calculations are the same, everything is the same. So buy one or the other, you don't need to buy both. The other book from him is a follow-up book called Beyond Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, which really has more of a bodybuilder focus to it. It's kind of made for somebody who has plateaued on the first book and hasn't made the gains that they want to anymore. And there's a lot of stuff in here about like how to measure your proportions, like how big your biceps should be compared to the circumference of your wrist and stuff like that. So again, definitely more geared towards somebody who is going for an aesthetic appearance, which is fine. That's an athlete too, but it's not so good for grappling athletes. We need to have a little bit of fat stored up for those rolling sessions or matches if you choose to compete, where you might go for 20 minutes nonstop. You gotta have a little bit of fat. You can't have 5% body fat and do that kind of thing. So that's my number one, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. My number two, if I were to only be able to read 2 books, this is kind of considered to be the Bible of weightlifting. It's called Starting Strength by Mark Rippetoe. And it's pretty thick. It's 300 some pages. And it tells you how to do the main lifts, which again, he considers to be squat, deadlift, shoulder press, bench press, and with the addition of power cleans or other Olympic weight lifts like snatches and stuff like that. And there's a ton of science in here, way more science than you need to know, unless you're really into that. If you really want to know why you have to hold your back in a certain position while you're doing the squat, this book has the answer for that. This book also has some general programming information, especially for beginning weightlifters. So it's a good read. It gets a little bit dense, and sometimes the science can be a little bit overwhelming, but definitely worth reading if you are going to start lifting heavier and heavier weights, because you're going to get injured at some point if you don't have a book telling you exactly how to do the lift properly. And you could end up with a really serious injury and never be able to lift heavy weights again, and maybe never be able to compete in your sport again. So definitely a worth reading. A couple of other books from Mark Rippetoe. This one is called Practical Programming for Strength Training, and it builds off of this book in that if you have gotten through his beginner program recommendation, then you want to change things up so that you can break through your plateaus. Or there's some stuff in here too about if you're an athlete, like a wrestler or something like that. These books by Mark Rippetoe are definitely geared towards strength athletes like powerlifters and Olympic lifters, but for an athlete, this can be useful. It's pretty dense. It's basically all like charts and graphs and stuff. But it's worth a read if you have gotten pretty far into your program and you're starting to hit some plateaus, or if you're getting bored and you just want to change things up. This is another book by Mark Rippetoe called Mean Old Mr. Gravity. It's probably the least useful of the 3. It's really just a bunch of message board threads and stuff that he has responded to. So if you have specific questions about how to program X lift into your workout, then this book probably has the answer. I didn't really find it to be all that useful, frankly. The third book, if I were to only have 3 books that I could read on weightlifting, the third book that I would recommend is called Tactical Barbell, and it's written by a guy, he just goes by the initials KB. He's a military guy, and I think he was in special ops of some sort, SWAT operator, combat arms soldier. It's for people who are in the military or who are first responders, but it's also geared a lot towards athletes, like especially combat athletes. This book is, it takes all of the extra stuff out of your weight routines and just gets down to the very core lifts, which again, bench press, squat, deadlift, kind of overhead press and pull-ups and a couple of other things that he recommends. And it just like strips away all of the extra stuff, so you're not spending an hour at a time in the gym. Before I read this book, I was lifting weights for an hour, 4 days a week. And it didn't leave a whole lot of time for other stuff like yoga, or I have a grappling dummy that I like to do drills on, and I just was having a hard time motivating myself to do that after an hour in the weight room. After I started doing these programs, he has 3 different programs in here, I cut my weight routine down to 30 minutes, and I use the extra time afterward for whatever it is that I need. I either do jiu-jitsu drills, or right now I'm doing some body weight training that I'll talk about in a minute. You can do cardio afterward, whatever it is that you need to do. So this is a really, really good book. It talks a little bit about how to do the exercises, but it doesn't give a whole lot of information on how to do them correctly without getting injured. So I wouldn't use this book alone. I would definitely learn how to do the lifts correctly. And it should go without saying that if you really want to learn how to do things correctly and safely, you should get a personal trainer. You should not just read a book and imagine, or even watch a video and think that you're going to be able to do things with heavy weights without getting injured. It helps to have somebody there to correct your form and everything. One more book that I wanted to give a brief shout out to is called Dinosaur Training by Brooks Kubik. And it's an interesting read. If you get into weightlifting and you want to try some funky new stuff, this is this kind of the stuff that the like old timey bodybuilders and weightlifters and stuff would do, like the carnival guys and stuff like that. And if you read this book, you probably will buy some grip trainers, and you may end up buying like a sandbag or a barrel or something like that. You can see the guy who's lifting a barrel, because it's like all that this guy is into, and it's cool stuff. It wasn't really for me, but it might be for somebody else. I'm sure that's very, very effective. And then lastly, the book that I'm reading right now, which I have on Kindle, so I don't think that I can loan that to you unless there's a way to do that on Kindle that I'm just not aware of. But it is called Overcoming Gravity, and it's by Stephen Lowe, I think was his name. He is a personal or a physical therapist who was a college gymnast, and it's pretty cool. It's obviously it's about body weight training. It's called Overcoming Gravity. It has a little bit of stuff in there about weightlifting, but really it's not just, I'm not talking about body weight training like push-ups and burpees and stuff. This is about like handstands and doing stuff on the rings and stuff, like the really cool stuff that Olympic gymnasts do. And it is really geared towards strength training, and he talks a lot about other sports that it's applicable to, like combat sports, grappling, wrestling. And there is some stuff about nutrition, and with him being a physical therapist, there's stuff in there too about like injury prevention and rehab for injuries, and it's pretty dense. I've been doing the exercises at the end of my weight routines. Like I do my weights, and then I do a couple of body weight things, and then I do my training dummy drills or cardio. I have a Peloton bike. That's what I'm doing for cardio right now. But it's pretty fun. It's changing things up. I've been lifting weights for 20 years, like I said, and you kind of get tired of just doing the same stuff over and over again. So this is a completely different application of strength, and with the flexibility and the balance and the ridiculous amount of strength that some of this bodyweight stuff requires, I think that it's going to be really applicable to jiu-jitsu. So I'm pretty excited about it. So I will put links to all of these books in the description of the video on YouTube. So if you're interested, you can buy them online. But like I said, I'm happy to loan them out to anybody as long as I can trust you to return it. Thanks, guys.